Hi, and welcome, and thanks for joining me again. My name's David McLean. So, as you can see today, what we're going to talk a little bit more about is change. And why is change difficult or painful? Why, when we want to change, when we want to do new things, when we want to become better versions of ourselves, why is it such a challenge at times? So change can either be difficult or painful. And what I'd like to do and explain a bit today is why is change difficult. So the best way to do that is a fantastic analogy of the Amazon jungle. So you can imagine, let's just imagine, I don't know if you've ever been to the jungle, of course in my marine days I've been a few times, but you can imagine if you've never been to the jungle what it would be like. So the first time you're trying to create this new pathway. So what do? You get your machete out, you're walking down the primary or the secondary jungle and you're beating down this new pathway down the Amazon jungle. Now it's going to be a challenge, isn't it? It's going to be difficult and it's going to take a lot of effort. Let's move back to reality, if you like, in the brain. You want to create a new habit. Let's say it's singing, let's say it's playing the piano, playing a musical instrument. The first time you pick up the guitar, it's difficult. You can't seem to remember things, you can't remember what you were doing. You go back the next week and the teacher tells you, remember this, this and this. You think, oh God, I forgot that. And it's a challenging, difficult thing to get things going, if you like, and to move things forward. And of course you watch other people play guitars who've been doing it for a while, who've got the habit, and they seem to just strum away automatically. So let's go back to the Amazon jungle. So you're beating down this pathway, it's taking time, it's taking a lot of effort. And of course, the more and more you go down that pathway in the jungle, the better that pathway will become. And let's imagine that there's other pathways that have already been created in the jungle. There's some pathways that have been walked down, if you like, often, and they're quite beaten in. There's perhaps some pathways that even there's 4x4 trucks have driven down and they're really wide and strong, they've maybe even been tarmacked. So they're really strong, wide and permanent pathways. It's exactly the same in the brain. The more that you walk down these pathways, the stronger it becomes. And what do we mean by that in terms of the brain? The more that you think down that, the more thoughts you have that go down the same pathways. Because we want to imagine the brain like the Amazon jungle. You used to think of it a bit like Tesco's or Sainsbury's or whatever, if you like, any other retail outlets. You used to think of it that there was very much sections for everything. There was sections to go and get your milk, there was sections to go and get fruit and veg, or sections to go and get whatever it is that you want to get. The brain, yes, of course, is like that to an extent. But it's much more intertwined, much more interweaved, if you like, much more like the Amazon jungle. And to create a new pathway, you need to think your way down that pathway. And of course, the first time you think your way down there, the first time you're acting, the first time you're playing the guitar, the first time you're trying to think of a new way to create some change within your business, if you like, or to move to a different job, or to try and generate some more business, some more sales, it's a challenging thing because you've never been down that pathway before. Think back to the Amazon jungle, the first time you're beating down that. It's difficult, it takes time to get down there. But the more and more you beat that path, the more you walk down that path, the stronger it becomes. The more that you think down the path within your mind, the stronger that becomes. So imagine your mind like the Amazon, imagine your mind like the jungle with lots of different pathways. You've got the ones that are well beaten in, that are strong and that are never going to leave you. That's how to use your knife and fork, tying your shoelaces, driving your car, riding a bike, any complex tasks that you do at your work that perhaps that I've never done before. And of course there's another good one as well, not just these type of things, but thought patterns. I'm always thinking positively. I always see the light at the end of the tunnel. I always see how things should be. I always see the brighter side of life. That's also a thought pattern. So what do you need to do? If you're thinking slightly negatively, if you're like, oh, I'm always worrying, I've always been a worrier, that's because you've created that strong pathway. That's all it is. And do you know one of the best things? Do you know when you move off the pathway in your mind, so to speak, and you go down a new pathway to create a new one, you stop going into the swamp, if you like, with your negative thoughts, and you go into the nice clearing? The more and more you do that, the old pathway grows over. Just exactly like the Amazon jungle. It doesn't leave you completely, that's fine, but it leaves you more or less, and certainly leaves you enough that it never needs to bother you again. That's why we can move away from old habits. So imagine in the Amazon jungle, of course, when you're out there and there's a pathway that you don't use for a while, well, what will happen? Well, the foliage will start to grow over, and then eventually the pathway will just pretty much fade away. Exactly the same in the brain. So those old patterns that you don't want, those old thought patterns that are perhaps negative, that are taking you down a route of overeating perhaps, or taking you down a route of that you're not motivated enough in terms of your business, in terms of whatever it is that you're doing in your job. These ways will grow over, and I'm living proof of that. Focus on what you want. Keep focusing. Remember, one of the key points of change is repetition. Keep walking down that pathway in your mind. Keep thinking down that pathway in your mind, and you will create change. Okay, thank you very much. Hope that was helpful, and have a fantastic day. Speak to you soon.